Good evening, everyone. It's nice to be with us this evening. My name is David King Etienam, and I'm our marriage and relationship coach. It's awesome to always be with us during these sessions, and tonight is one of those exciting moments, and I appreciate our being with us together tonight. I'm excited. We've been on this series for this is the fourth month. Yes, this is the fourth month, and that's because we've been dealing with a series, a very important series that, for me, I consider it the foundation of every relationship. I consider it the foundation of every relationship, and that's talking about temperaments. Temperaments. And I remember us, having to mention that temperament has to do with our personality, our nature, has to do with why we do the things we do, has to do with our character. When I say character, not necessarily character, our personality. Yes. And you see, we talked about the choleric, we talked about the sanguine, we've talked about the phlegmatic, and today we want to look at the melancholy. The melancholy is very, very key. The melancholy is very, very powerful. Now, that doesn't mean that other temperaments are not powerful. Maybe I'm a little bit, would I say, biased in this sense. And that's because I am primarily a melancholy. And it's interesting because a lot of people see the melancholic temperament as a temperament that is not very good, if I may use that word. But you see, I've told us that no temperament is good and no temperament is bad. All temperaments are good for the persons that have them or exhibit them. And but we've been able to let us know that in as much as there is no good and bad temperament, but every temperament has its strength and every temperament has its weaknesses. That is one thing that is unique and with every temperament. Every temperament has its strengths, every temperament has its weaknesses. So, but the good thing, why we need to undertake study of temperaments is because when you get to know your temperament, you get to understand the strengths. You also get to understand the weaknesses. It helps you realize why you do the things you do and why other people around you who may have either your same kind of temperament or other temperaments, you get to begin to understand why they do the things they do, the way they do them, why they talk the way they talk, why they behave the way they behave, and all of that. So it makes you enjoy better relationship with other people. Whether it's your co-workers in the office, whether it's your boss, whether it's someone you are in a platonic relationship with or have an emotional connection to, temperaments would help you to get to know people better. And it will help you to get to relate with them better. And so, like I said, we've been on, a journey. We started with the choleric, then we went to the sanguine, or I think, was it the other way around? I think we started with the sanguine, then went to the choleric. Then we now went to the phlegmatic, and today we are on the melancholy. We're able to thank you, Mr. Fred. We started with the best, Abby. Thank you, sir. Okay, maybe just to do a recap, I mentioned about the sanguine, and I said the sanguine is that individual who is, if I may use the word, all over the place, always excited, the enthusiast amongst everybody. The sanguine is loud. In other words, a sanguine is not quiet. They are happy people, joyful people. When they get into a place, you just know that a sanguine has entered. In fact, from the gate, you begin to hear their voice. They are very excited, very loud, very what's the other word? Adventurous. They like trying out things. So the sanguine is one of the extroverted temperament. In other words, they get their strength from other people, from mingling and relating with other people. That's, in a nutshell, who the sanguine is. And we mentioned some strengths, mentioned some weaknesses, of the sanguine. So, well, the message is out there on the site. So if you missed that session, please go back and watch that message and to get the full information that we communicated during that session. Then we talked about the choleric, who is naturally a visioner. The choleric is that person who is a leader by nature. And I said a visioner in the sense that a choleric naturally thrives on goals and targets. So they wake up in the morning, the first question in their head is, what am I achieving today? They are achievers, the choleric. And I usually would say that the choleric doesn't care whose ox is God. A lot of times people see them as unemotional. And that's because the choleric would go to any length in trying to achieve his goal or her goal and target. So the choleric is a visioner, someone who, when they see a goal, they pursue it and they ensure that they achieve whatever it is that they are pursuing. So that's the choleric in a nutshell. He has his strength, or she has her strength, and they also have their weaknesses. And then we moved on to the introverted temperament, and the first one we looked at was the phlegmatic. And why we say introverted is because these fall under the class of people who get their strength from, within themselves. We have two of them, the phlegmatic and the one we're going to be looking at today, which is the melancholy. So, like I said, the phlegmatic gets his or her strength from within themselves. They are easygoing people, very, if I may use the word, committed. They are loyal. And one of the reasons why they are loyal is because the phlegmatic does not know how to tell people no. They are yes men, in a sense. Anything you ask a phlegmatic, they could even go out of their way to provide it for you. They are sacrificial by nature. People like them. People like to relate with them, and that's because, like I said, they hardly ever would tell you no. It's always yes, yes, yes. So because of that, whether people are taking advantage of them or not, we don't know. But it's possible for someone to take advantage of you because you don't know how to say no. You're always saying yes. So they ask you, give me this, do this for me, and all of that. So that's the phlegmatic. That's the phlegmatic. The phlegmatic is also that class of people or persons who are almost never troubled. They enjoy peace, tranquility, almost all the time around them. The whole world could be falling apart. The phlegmatic is at peace, is at rest. They take one day at a time. Don't ask a phlegmatic to give you his or her 10-year goal or 5-year goal. In fact, they are not thinking about goal for next week. Last time I used this analogy where I borrowed a term from the Lord's Prayer, which comes from the Holy Book. the Bible, where Jesus said, one of the places where he was teaching us how to pray, he said, give us this day our daily bread. So the phlegmatic is a person of daily bread. They're not thinking of weekly bread. They're not thinking of monthly bread. Daily bread. They are satisfied with life one day at a time, So wonderful thing, wonderful persons of the phlegmatic. They're the kind of people that they can calm you down when you're under stress. So they have good traits. They have also negative traits. Some negative traits, of course, is procrastination. And one of the reasons why they procrastinate is because to them, we didn't do it today, let's do it tomorrow. I mean, what's the fuss? What's the stress about all of this? We must achieve it today. So phlegmatic, wonderful people, but you must understand this temperament to also be able to relate with these people. Then, today, we are looking at the melancholy. Very wonderful set of people. A lot of people see the melancholy as difficult. A lot of people see the melancholy as one of the reasons why they see the melancholy as difficult is because one of the traits of the melancholy is I say we are because I am one primarily. We are organized, very organized. So, for instance, I have a mug on the table, and this mug, a melancholy can keep this mug here every single day, this same spot. And if you show up to move this mug away from this part of this place, you may have trouble with the melancholy. So that's one of the reasons why a lot of people think these people are not too worried, are not too stressed. Organized. One of the traits of the melancholy. Organized. When we wake up in the morning, the melancholy might wake up in the morning and feels like, okay, the first thing I need to do is to drink a glass of water. The next thing I need to do is to use the restroom. The next thing I need to do is to brush my teeth. The next thing, in that order. So at times, the melancholy could be, if I may use the word, annoying. Annoying. Everything has to be in a particular order. And you're wondering, okay, I mean, can't we try it this way? Can't we experiment? Can't we explore? Like the Sanguine, who is, good in exploration and trying out different things. So we did it today this way. Can't we try this other way tomorrow? And all of that. And so a lot of people now tend to see the phlegmatic as boring. Boring, because it's like we are rigid. It's like we don't have a spice to our life. Yes. But when you get to know the melancholy, you will get to enjoy us. Yes, you will get to enjoy us. So like I said, a lot of people see us as boring because it appears that we are rigid. It appears that we are always, going through a particular course of action. But come on, being organized is a good thing. Think about a world where there's no phlegmatic. Think about a world where people don't know how to organize things. People don't know how to put things in order. It will be a messed world. It will be a world full of confusion. So amidst the boring nature of the melancholy, we still have our usefulness within organizations, within a home. Think about how messy the home would be without someone who has some traits of the melancholy, who could wake up in the morning and say, okay, this house is so disorganized. Let me do some chores. Let me clean up. Let me tidy up a bit. Let me make the bed. Let me scrub the toilet. Let me clean up the kitchen. Think about it. Think about it. when you set your house in order, you don't want maybe the children's things to be littered all around the sitting room. It has to be organized. It has to be in order. That's how to take care of a place and keep it clean and tidy and organized. So even if you don't have someone at home who is melancholy, you will of necessity need to borrow some melancholic traits. And that's where order and organization come in. So you may not like us for certain reasons, but we have huge advantage within an environment. Yes, we do. So it's good for you to know that, okay, while I'm telling you that these are certain things you need in your life to put things in order, it's something that we all learn from time to time. But for the person who is melancholy, we don't learn these traits. It shows up through us naturally. So we are naturally organized. We are naturally, if I may use the word, rigid. In the sense that, we try to maintain our routine. I mean, think about it. If you have someone like a melancholy working in an establishment, an office, where a particular routine is meant to be followed, meaning you have someone you will never have issues with. Because by nature, he or she knows how to follow routine. They don't need to be policed. They don't need to be pushed. So that's also why when certain organizations are trying to hire certain people, they know the kind of people they are looking for. If they are looking for someone, for instance, who is organized, they would look for someone who has a melancholic trait. Because you don't need to push him around to insist or to tell him or her what to do. They will just by nature flow in sync with what the organization wants. Then if you need someone who is lively, maybe the person is meant to be there to attend to visitors or guests as they show up. Maybe you need this person to do the work of an usher, for instance. Maybe this person should be a staff at the front office desk. Now, it will be out of place for you to put a melancholy there, because the melancholy is going to annoy your visitors. Either by the way he or she would address them or welcome them or approach them, or, whatever it is. The melancholy is not the friendly type. If you find a melancholy that is friendly, it means that the melancholy has a secondary temperament, which is able to relate with other people. So it's either his or her secondary temperament is choleric or sanguine, or maybe phlegmatic, because the phlegmatic is a little bit people-oriented in a sense, even though they are a little bit inward drawn by virtue of their personality. But they are a little bit more tilted towards people than the melancholy. The melancholy, you see this meeting I'm having now with you. The real me wish this meeting didn't hold. So you now see how we can now go ahead to push ourselves even beyond our temperament. So one of the things to understand about temperament is no temperament is cast in stone. In other words, in as much as I tell you that this is how this temperament is, this is how this temperament is, I'm not saying that you cannot modify your person. You can't change your personality, but you can modify your person and how it relates with others. So like I said, the real me does not want to be in this meeting. Yes. For Fred, that's why Fred can, for instance, have 3, 4, 5 meetings in a day, and tomorrow he comes back, he's having fun. In fact, Fred can be in this meeting right now, and he's in another meeting. How he does it, I don't know. You see, but for me, I'm here because of passion. Not because I feel like. I'm passionate about what I do. Especially when it has to do with marriage and relationship. And so when I come on board here, it's because I'm disciplined. So I check my time. At times I set an alarm to remind me. And then I'm here delivering because of passion, because I enjoy it, not because I feel like it, but because it is my assignment. So for the melancholy, I just want to be locked away. I just want to stay by myself. I gain strength from my thinking, from my reasoning, from my creativity. And that's another thing. Melancholies are very creative because they are deep people. Deep. So if you have a melancholy who is an artist, he would be a very good one. Or she would be a very good one. If you have a melancholy who is a writer, they would be very good one because they are deep thinkers. Deep thinkers. So a lot of times you find melancholies who operate in the creatives. Whether it's art, music, painting, writing, and all of that. They get involved in all of these things, and they exhibit quite a lot of skill in what they do. Okay, let's proceed. I want to give us a little rundown from my notes here. The melancholy, like the phlegmatic, are natural introverts. And I explained what introverts are. I said introverts are people who get their strength from within themselves. They prefer to, stay within their space than to mingle. Now, not that they don't mingle, but they prefer. So it's about preference. They prefer to stay within their space than to mingle. The sanguine, for instance, you see, maybe in marriage or some kind of relationship where there's some intimacy and all of that. Once in a while, you hear partners saying things like, "I need my space. I need my space." Melancholies, sanguines, for instance, they almost don't need any space. They are the kind of people who like your space. They want to be a part of your space, But by the time you hear someone saying, I need my space, I need my space, those are some of the pointers to knowing who an introvert is. Hardly also do you find a choleric saying, I need my space. The choleric is, in fact, the choleric is in your space for a reason. I always will say that. And I usually would use purpose to separate the choleric from the sanguine. So in as much as the choleric and the sanguine are people-oriented, in other words, they enjoy the company of people, but like I said, the sanguine would enjoy the company of people for fun. For fun. Whereas the choleric enjoys the company of people, listen, for a reason. For what? A reason. Meaning, take away that reason, the choleric probably has no business with you. The choleric has a business or relationship with you because of purpose, because of vision, because of goals and target, where you come in. Without that, the choleric probably would not have any relationship with you. So his relationship with you or her relationship with you is vision-oriented. So those are examples of the extroverts. then I say melancholy, like the phlegmatic, are natural what? Introverts. Melancholies need to learn to communicate their feelings. They need to learn it. They don't know how to communicate their feelings. They feel pain. They feel a certain way, and they can't communicate it. So because of that inability to communicate how they feel, they bottle up a lot of things inside. They are the kind of people who, when you ask them, how are you? They'll tell you, I'm fine. Whereas they are not fine. They know they are not fine. Everything around them is showing that they are not fine, but they will tell you, I'm fine. Because they don't even know how to, they don't even know how to comprehend it themselves. So a lot of times, that's why one of the things that the melancholy is always experiencing is mood swings. Mood swings. Is he or she is happy this moment, the next moment they are sad. If you ask them what's wrong with you, at times they themselves don't even know what's wrong with them. Yes, it's that complex. At times they themselves don't even know what is wrong with them. Mood swings. So like I said, they need to learn to communicate their feelings. They are going through something. They are going through pain. They are going through hurts. But they don't even know how to communicate it. They don't even know how to, tell you what they are going through. Emotionally, they are very protective and guarded. Like I said, the melancholy naturally loves his or her space. So they are guarded. You get into a relationship with them, they like have a natural defense wall. They are trying at every point in time to keep you away. They don't even know that they are doing that. But they are guarded, especially when it has to do with their emotions. Now, it's natural for certain people whose emotions have been tampered with or toyed with in the past to be guarded when it has to do with, their relations with other people, because they've been hurt and all of that. Now, the melancholy, whether they've never been hurt from when they were little, they are naturally guarded. So some people leap before they look. In other words, some people are proactive, like the choleric, for instance, or the sanguine, and all of that. The phlegmatic might even leap before they look because they don't want to offend the other person. They don't want the other person asking them questions like, why are you so this? Why? So they tend to follow the crowd. They flow with the crowd. The melancholy, no. One thing about the melancholy, we are very rational. Rational and critical. The melancholy asks questions. You can't just tell the melancholy forward march and the melancholy marches with you without asking, where are we going to? They want to have an idea of the destination before they take the move. So the melancholy naturally asks questions before they take action. And that also makes the melancholy procrastinate. So just like the choleric and the sanguine, where I use the illustration to say that the choleric and the sanguine are both they relate to people, but for the sanguine, they relate to people for fun. The choleric, they relate to people for a reason. The same way, when we look at when we look at the melancholy and the phlegmatic or the melancholy, before they make a move, they want to know why. So they are critical. They ask questions. Very critical in their thinking. Yesterday, I was discussing with someone. She produced an album, and I was part of the production crew for that music album. So she went out to take some reviews of the video that we did before it's released. And she came back with some review. And I told her something, because at some point she misunderstood my communication and thought that I was opposed to criticism. And at some point she even stopped using the word criticism and said that it's not actually criticism, that it is review. And I said, no, criticism is not a bad word. It's not a negative word. A lot of us see it as negative because a lot of us don't know how to take criticism. Criticism is not a negative word. It simply means that you are trying to give a critique on a particular thing. You're trying to say or bring out the good parts, and you're trying to bring out the bad parts. So why did I say this? Because you see, people who are melancholies are natural critiques. In other words, if this, my glass case, is in the wrong place, every other person could walk in and not even realize that this glass is in the wrong place. But the natural mind of the melancholy, who by its nature likes things in order, will immediately walk into a place and see that there's something wrong about this glass case here, and would probably look for where to put it. So if you have a melancholy within your group, or you have a melancholy, or you have a relationship with a melancholy person, you have been naturally blessed by God to have someone who can checkmate you, who can call you to order if you begin to go with excesses in certain things, or you begin to miss it in certain things. So I'm trying to show you the personality of the melancholy, so that peradventure you are relating with one today, whether in the office, whether in a relationship. Don't begin to see them as rigid, see them as annoying, see them as I beg, calm down. You are too they have their place. Like I said, every temperament could tend to overdo certain things if not put in check. And guess what? The people who have or who possess those temperaments are the only people who can put themselves into check. Don't try to check a melancholy. You will only create an enemy. Don't try to check a choleric. You will only create an enemy. Don't try to check a phlegmatic. You will only create an enemy. Same thing with the sanguine. Am I saying you cannot be a part of their change? Let me not say change. I always like using the word modification. Am I saying you cannot be a part of their modification? No, you can. But the only way you can achieve that is through influence, not by force, not because you point out their errors all the time, but through influence. Influence by association. And so the person looks at you and says, wow, I like the way this guy behaves. I like the way he talks. I like the way, and all of that. And the person says, I like this aspect of this person. Now, by nature, I am not this way. But I think I like the outcome of what I see when this person exhibits this. So they can now begin to naturally adjust. And that readjustment comes based on engaging in what I call routine practices. Routine practices. So take, for instance, if someone, let me use Let me use the sanguine, for instance. One of the reasons why the sanguines are a little bit distracted is because they are full of activity. So the sanguine is doing this at this moment. In the next 30 minutes, they could just switch into something else. And they've left something they were doing which may have been important. So, but if the sanguine can begin to intentionally, let's say he says, I want to make sure that I do this as a routine. So he wakes up, he takes his time, or she takes her time, and writes out a schedule of what he or she wants to accomplish within the day. That's one of the ways the sanguine can be disciplined. They write out those things, or if they have a checklist, like an app or whatever, on their mobile phone, they can, itemize. I want to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this today. No, not because I feel like, but because I have to. And then after they've done that checklist, they could go a step further to set alarms or notifications to prompt them when that time comes. For the melancholy, they don't need that kind of prompting. For the choleric, they don't need that kind of prompting, because these guys are the choleric is vision-oriented, the melancholy is organized. So right at the back of his or her mind, they know that after this, I'm supposed to do this. Not necessarily because they are goal-oriented, but because they are organized and orderly. So even their day is organized. But the sanguine can say, I need to be organized, because being organized has its advantage. But he's not natural at organizing. Neither is he natural at meeting goals and targets. So they need help. It's either they will depend on the resources of someone who is naturally organized, naturally goal-oriented, or they will require the resources of an app or a device that can do them that prompting from time to time. So I'm trying to show you personality. So you don't wake up and say, I don't like this person. You are very disorganized. Okay, he's disorganized, but can he do something, or can she do something to help her remain organized? Yes, she can. Yes, he can. And then when you meet someone who naturally is disorganized, you don't get upset and say, can't you see the way I do things? No, they are not you, and you are not them. Different personality types, different temperaments. But you will begin to understand why they do the things they do. And if you want to proffer help to this kind of people, instead of you attacking them by making them feel as though they are, what's the word now? As though something is wrong with them, you can help them, tell them, okay, this aspect, since you have challenges with this aspect, do you mind, using your alarm? Do you mind maybe using sticky notes where you would stick them up maybe on your laptop or somewhere in your office where it will catch your attention, at least to remind you to do certain things? I mean, that's how to encourage people like that who are not like you, rather than make them feel that there's something wrong with them, because nothing is wrong with them. Nothing is wrong with them. So don't be in a relationship with someone and then tell the person, why are you so disorganized? Why are you so scattered? No. The person could have a defect in one area, but in another area, the person will beat you, hands down. Because the person, for instance, has communication skills, which you don't. The person, for instance, would have relationship skills, which you don't. So when we get to that other field, what if that person begins to look down at you? So it's about understanding. It's about being able to know your strengths and know your weaknesses, as well as know the other person's strength and the other person's weaknesses. These are the things that make relationship healthy and worthwhile. Yes. Okay, we are still talking about the melancholy. Because of their intellectual and analytical energy, let me read that again. Because of their intellect, remember I said that the melancholy, by virtue of certain traits that we possess, we are gifted, we are skillful, So that's what this is saying. Say because of their intellectual and analytical energy, they can see the results of a project before moving forward. Like I said, we think before we leap. Or rather, we look before we leap. Some other people may leap before they look. And there's nothing wrong with that. You see, because even in business, we understand that there are times some of those risks that some people take is what end up, giving them the big break that they get. Even in business. And like I said, one of the reasons why the melancholy is very delays or procrastinates a lot is because they want to gather all the answers before they take the steps, which can be good. Because at times you want to also be able to have someone around you who can measure the risks. There are some risks that are unnecessary if properly, looked at. Because some actions have cost even companies, multinational companies, certain amount of money that are irrecoverable. Which, if they had taken a second look, a third look, a fourth look, they wouldn't have gotten themselves in that mess. Now, that second or third or fourth look is something that the melancholy is naturally gifted at. That he or she could just spot, there's something here. That statement, I smell a rat. Melancholies know how to smell things. They are naturally gifted with that ability. They know how to smell things. Even in relationships. They know how not to be around certain people. They may not even be able to tell you at first, but they just pick certain things, certain senses, and they're like, let's step back again and take a deeper look at this person or this activity or this, action before we get into it. The melancholy. Sometimes, like I said, those delays, those procrastinating tendencies may not be the best. May not be the best. There are certain actions that are time-based. And even when you have the solution or you think you have the remedy or the issue, the time may have elapsed. And so, if you have to depend always on the perfection of the melancholy to come out with the full detail before you take the step, it means there are times you might miss certain opportunities. But it's good to also know that the melancholy is strong with observation, strong with critical thinking, strong with being able to analyze certain things. And if you know that, then you can utilize the skills of the melancholy, which comes naturally. And then it could help you be in a better place. Okay. Melancholies have a very sensitive emotional nature. Feelings dominate their being, meaning that the melancholy is more driven by feelings a lot of times, in as much as they are very high with rational thinking, but at times they allow their feelings to take over. That's why, like I said earlier, the melancholy could get into mood swings and not even know what the issue is with them. Sometimes moods will lift them to extreme highs. At other times, they will be gloomy and depressed. They live in the realm of mood swings. If they have a secondary temperament, it will often help balance this out. And like I said, I doubt if there's any person on the face of the earth that has 100% of one particular temperament. I doubt if there is. There's usually a primary temperament and then a secondary temperament. But in a lot of cases, the primary temperament, is more dominating than the secondary temperament. At times you have an even balancing of the two. So there are temperaments where you have like almost 50-50, at times 60-40. But now you begin to find temperaments go in the direction of 70-30. That's showing that, okay, one is more dominant than the other. You begin to see temperaments having 80-20. You see some, in fact, having as much as 90-10. Which puts the other temperaments, which has 10, to like be in a place of almost being extinct. In other words, you are almost not noticeable. If those traits, those 10% traits of the secondary temperament show up, it's in very minute details. Yes. So it's good to know how much dominance the primary temperament has over the secondary temperament. There's a link I would have shared here. Maybe I will drop it later on. I'll drop it later on. But that link, I would have led you to a site where you could do a temperament test. You see, because it's good to know. The importance of knowing, there's a course that I teach in premaritals. That course is self-knowledge. And I usually would tell people that you can't claim to want to know someone else or bring someone on board in a relationship with you if you are yet to know yourself. A lot of people don't know themselves. And it leads them into getting into poor relationships because at times we are the problem in our relationships. Let me say that again. A lot of times we are the problem in our various relationships. And if we could just deal with ourselves, you may just have solved the problem in that relationship. Self-knowledge. A lot of times people don't know themselves. People don't know themselves a lot of times. So it's good for you to know yourself. And that's why we're talking about the melancholy today as part of the 4 basic temperaments. And like I said, I'll drop that link later on so that you could go do that temperament test and have an idea. Because when you know, you begin to really pay attention to that particular temperament. You begin to really give it observation. And by yourself, you will begin to realize what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are. And you will begin to take the initiative to modify it. Don't forget, I always use that word, modify. And the way to modify your temperament is, by, like I said, by saying, okay, this aspect I am poor at. What do I need to do to strengthen this aspect of my personality where I have weaknesses? And then you begin to itemize certain things that you need to do, certain actions that you need to do, and then you begin to put them into routines. Routines. Tell yourself every morning at 6 a.m. I'm going to do this. It's like what you do with your body. You know that, okay, you need to do something about your body for the sake of your health. So maybe you need to wake up in the morning and head to the gym. You don't feel like going to the gym. You feel like remaining in your bed to sleep for 1 more extra hour, for 2 more extra hours. So you drag yourself out of the bed, from the bed, because you set a time to go to the gym. And so you continue in that routine for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. At some point, you will realize that you actually woke up without your alarm ringing. Because you see, your body is beginning to condition itself to the time that you set for that routine. There's a book I wrote, Dealing with Likes and Dislikes in Marriage. In that book, I explained the process of change. So when I talk about change, I always will tell people that you can't change anybody. You can only influence people in the direction of change. people only change when they agree that they need to change. And after they've agreed that they need to change, they begin to take steps. The routines, like I've mentioned, they begin to take those steps in the direction of change by doing certain things repeatedly until it becomes like a second nature. It becomes part of them and begins to get into auto drive. In piloting, they call it autopilot. So it's not all the time that the plane is in the sky, that the pilot is busy navigating the plane. At some point, he just sets the plane on autopilot with all the dials set in and tuned in. And in fact, he could catch a nap while flying. He sets the plane on autopilot. And there are also navigation systems that could, alert him if while he's on autopilot, there is an imminent danger. Maybe the weather, maybe an oncoming plane in his path. There are also systems put in place that will, alert him and call him to check. But he can actually set that plane on autopilot for the rest of the trip after he has, gone into the air. And that's what happens when we begin to engage ourselves for change. We identify the things that we are supposed to do in the direction of change, and then we begin to intentionally do them. Routine is very important in a bid to achieve change. You continue until your subconscious takes over that routine. And you find yourself doing those things without even thinking about it. That is when change happens. But change never happens without an effort. Let me say that again. Change never happens without an effort. Change doesn't happen because you wish it. Change doesn't happen because you think it. Change happens because you initiate the process of change by getting involved in activity built into a routine, and you wholeheartedly perform that routine until your unconscious self takes over and you begin to exhibit those changes on autopilot. All right, let's continue. I'm just about to read something now that it's very amazing about the melancholy. When melancholy sink into their weaknesses, they become destructive to themselves and those close to them. Listen to this. Most suicidal-prone people are melancholies. Remember I said that melancholies are deep thinkers. Now, while being a deep thinker is good because it can bring out certain things that other people are not seeing, some level of deep thinking is also not good. So melancholies read meanings into things. Yes, read meanings into things. I mean, if a sanguine could crack a joke and the melancholy picks an offense. In fact, there's a book I'm writing on right now. The title of that book is The Effective Communication. The Effective Communicator. And that book is actually, it's in the works, so very soon it will come out. It's supposed to help us communicate with one another in relationships. Now, what gave birth to that book? I already told us that I am melancholy by nature. So what gave birth to that book? On a particular day, my wife said something and I got offended. I got upset. And after I expressed my anger, she made some corrections of my impression of what she meant by saying, no. This is not what I meant. This is what I meant. And by the time she communicated that to me, I understood that I was just getting upset and getting worked up for nothing, because she didn't mean it to offend me. Or she didn't mean for me to be offended, but I was, because I misunderstood her communication. There and then, it dawned on me that, wow, a lot of people run into misunderstandings, run into unnecessary fighting and what have you, because of misunderstanding. That word is very powerful, misunderstanding. And you see, also, I'm from a communication background. That's what I studied in school. You know, in defining communication, it is always said that communication is not achieved until understanding is reached. Until understanding and meaning is shared. So if I say something now, I cannot assume that you understood what I meant until you show me through feedback that what I said or what you thought I said is actually what I said, or is actually what I meant. And a lot of people are not patient to go through the rigors and, you know, the intricacies of communication. Hence, they have so many issues in relationship. So, not to digress, I mentioned something. I said, when melancholy sink into their weaknesses, they become destructive to themselves or to, think about it. We've heard of so many stories around the world of people just carrying guns, carrying weapons, walk into a place and begin to open fire. They don't even, Lord. It's unimaginable, but it's happening. It's happening. Someone just picks a rifle, walks into a group of people that have not offended you, people that you don't even know. One can say it's understandable if I carry out an aggressive action on someone who may have hurt me at some time. And then someone will say, oh, it was revenge. But you are walking into a group of people that you don't even know. In some cases, even children. And you open fire. Come on. That guy, in law, they call that premeditative murder. It didn't just come. Premeditated. It came from the place of deep thinking. Like I said, when melancholies sink into their weaknesses. Now, I'm not saying that deep thinking is a weakness, but you see, like I said, whether strength or weakness, at some point it could be positive, at some point it could be negative. At some point it could be a good thing, at another time it could be destructive. Let me give an example. One of the strengths of the sanguine is his or her joy. That excitement that they always, have. But imagine someone who is a sanguine, for instance. Like I said, joy, someone should see joy as a positive thing, isn't it? But someone just heard that his wife put to bed and he's ecstatic. And in the process of rushing to the hospital, he gets careless and dies in an accident. What caused that? Joy. Is joy good or bad? Joy is good, by the way we see it. But at that instant, he lost self-control. He lost self-control and allowed what would have been naturally good to lead everyone into sorrow. To lead everyone into sorrow. So, like I said, I try to use this illustration to show us that I'm not saying that anybody who is a deep thinker, could have negative tendencies. But you see, if that person sinks into that aspect of their personality and use it to the excess, at times it will work against them. it could work against them. Like I said, most suicidal prone people are melancholies. You see, because let me say it this way: melancholies take things very seriously. So, like I said, even when you joke, the melancholy could mistake or confuse your joke to be something serious. Yeah. Melancholies may be calm and quiet on the surface, but they are often angry and resentful. I remember that in one of our classes I mentioned that the melancholy is at times unforgiving. They are the ones who keep a diary of events. So something happened in 1970. Today, the melancholy is the one who keeps remembrance of that particular thing. They will remind you. In fact, even when it looks like they've forgiven you, they are the ones that will always bring issues back to light. They'll tell you, like what you did the other time. The melancholy. Like I said, they could be calm and quiet on the surface, but they are often angry and resentful. Often angry and resentful. They tend to keep those feelings to themselves until they build up, and eventually the anger explodes in a fit of rage. The melancholy knows how to bottle up. Like I said, how are you? I'm fine. Yeah, they are not fine. They are going through different things. They are holding it in. You're in a relationship with someone and you're like, what's going on? What's the matter? They'll just tell you, they either tell you they're fine or they tell you, I don't want to talk about it. And there's almost nothing that you would do that will make them talk about it. The melancholy. And if you pressure them for too long, they see it as though you are interfering in their space and you are causing them, discomfort. So they could try all they can to get out of that place. If they were working for you, the melancholy would want to resign. They want to get out of anything that would make you to bug them, to stress them, or want to get them to fall in line. Yeah, they love their space. They love their person. So I'm going to run through quickly the major weaknesses of the melancholy. Excuse me. Number one, the melancholy remembers the negative. Like I said, they keep a diary of wrongs. So everyone, like I always would tell people, everybody have positives and negatives. They have their good side, they have their bad side. But sadly, in relationships, we always remember the negatives more than the positives. So this is also one of the weaknesses of the melancholy. We remember the negatives more than we remember the positives. But if you want to change that, you have to be intentional about it. At times I used to, send some folks on an exercise. I'll tell them, pick your pen, pick your paper, begin to write down what you know are the good things about this person. Write it down. Then also begin to write down what you think are negatives about this person. A lot of times you just come to the realization that the positives are always more than the negatives. But you see, because the negatives cry out the loudest, they overshadow the good things that those people we're in relationship with possess. Melancholies are always moody and depressed. Well, not always, most of the time. Yeah, let me correct that statement because it's very important. Not always. Moody and depressed most of the time. Melancholies, by virtue of the fact that they're introverted, they are also self-centered. Self-centered. If you may use the word, melancholies are selfish. Yes, selfish. They are introverted, they are self-centered, which also makes them to think of themselves a lot of times. A lot of times they could just, get into themselves. They're only thinking about themselves. They don't think about other people. They don't know how to. Melancholies are hardly sacrificial. Yes, hardly sacrificial. Unlike the phlegmatic, who, although they are introverted, they are also sacrificial because they are people-oriented, And beyond the fact that they are sacrificial, they also are people pleasers. So by nature, they don't even know how to tell someone no, or to tell someone, I can't do this. So at times they go out of their way, to do certain things. But the melancholy is not like that. Like I said, they are rational thinkers. So they think things through and they're like, no, I'm not going to do this. And they stay with what they know would benefit them most of the time. The melancholy also likes to go into guilt trips. They guilt trip themselves a lot of times. The melancholy, they love vengeance. Hardly before a melancholy, maybe you do something to the melancholy, and the melancholy forgets about it because they're always remembering it. At times they want to revenge. They want to take out an action, that will more or less give them an appeasement. Something that will give them some form of false comfort, if I may use that word. Where it's like, okay, you've paid for your sins. So they are revengeful. On the work, I'm talking about the working environment now. I want us to run through the strengths of a melancholy. Like I said, every temperament have their strength, have their weaknesses. So I just pointed out some of the weaknesses of the melancholy. Let me point out the strength, especially in relation to work. The melancholy is schedule-oriented. Schedule-oriented. So if you want certain things within your organization to run unhindered, the melancholy is the best person to give that assignment to. Yes, the best person to give that assignment to, the melancholy. They will always be on schedule. They will always do what they are supposed to do at the right time. They are schedule-oriented. They are perfectionists. And that's because of their high standards. So if you're a kind of person, maybe in your organization or whatever, you love quality, you love perfection, the melancholy is the kind of person you would need to bring that perfection to bear. Whether in the workplace, whether at home, and all of that. You don't want to maybe... you want to get into a building project. You will need the services of a melancholy, even if they are not architects, because they have an architectural mind. They may not be architects by nature, but they just know this should be here, this shouldn't be here, and all of that. It's something that happens to them by nature. They are detail conscious. Detail. They are very good with details. They are persistent and thorough. Very persistent and very thorough. Orderly and organized. Excuse me. The melancholy is orderly and organized. The melancholy is neat and tidy. The melancholy is economical. The melancholy sees the problem before every other person does. The melancholy finds creative solutions to problems. The melancholy always want to finish what they start. The choleric also has that tendency too, because they love that achievement mindset where they get to the end of a matter and the fulfillment hits. So that's for the choleric. For the melancholy, why they love to finish what they start is because they are organized and they follow certain things and processes through. They like charts, they like graphs, they like figures, they like lists. So the melancholy likes to work with, they like to write, they like to work with checklists, they like to work with charts, because they try to make things very clear to people. So tell a melancholy, come and do a presentation about something. They are not going to just come with words. They are going to come with charts. They are going to come with graphs. They are going to come with figures, facts and figures, because they want to get everyone to follow through with what they are coming to communicate or to present. So melancholy is when it has to do with working environment. These are some of the strengths that you will find with the melancholy. Then weaknesses within a working environment. They are not people-oriented. I keep saying that. They are not people-oriented. So for instance, I say you don't give a receptionist job or a front office desk job to a melancholy. They could chase away your customers or give your establishment a wrong name. Not intentionally now, but by virtue of their personality. They are not people-oriented. So if you have people in an office, the melancholy is that person who never relates with other staff. He or she just minds their business, minds their work, close, carry their bags, and they're off. Now, that's not okay. That may not be healthy for an organization, because relating with people is also very key to how you work with people within an organization. But you see, that is a weakness for the melancholy, not people-oriented. Depressed and angry over imperfections. So you can have the melancholy just blowing their fuse when something is not done properly or not done right. Every other person could just look at it and, oh, okay, this is a mistake. Okay, how do we correct this? Or how do we move forward and all of that? But the melancholy, how could you have done this? He or she is infuriated that you made such a mistake in the first place. Because in their opinion, they shouldn't have made this kind of a mistake. They should have seen it and, avoided it. But you see, that's the melancholy's strength. Being able to see errors in advance and probably avoid them, which, like I said, doesn't mean that delay to observe before taking action doesn't mean it's the best thing at all times. But at some times, it could save a company, it could save a home, it could save you a lot, including financial salvage of funds that shouldn't have been missed or misplaced by simply that being observant. So while it could be a strength on one end, it could be a weakness on another. So I said they are not people-oriented. They are depressed and angry over imperfections. They are hesitant to start projects. So tell a sanguine about something, even though the sanguine may end up not finishing that thing, but they will start it. So the sanguine is a good starter. But the melancholy, because they want to understand the project before they even begin, so they drag and drag and drag. And some bosses may be upset. I gave you this task 2 days ago. What's the delay? And he says, sir, I need to do that. And the boss is upset. So that's one of the weaknesses. They are hesitant over starting projects because they are procrastinators by nature. They spend too much time planning. They prefer analysis to the work at hand. Their standards are too high. So if you are in a relationship with someone who is a melancholy, just know that at times, most of the time, they are very hard to please. So at times you could even do something and you step back, expecting them to clap hands for you, to be excited, to hear. You say, this is great stuff that you've just done. While you're waiting for that, they're analyzing it. They are criticizing what you've done. And they could even make you feel as though what you did is worthless. It's a weakness. Not that it's a bad trait, because at times you need that criticism if you have to improve on certain things. But you see, because of the disposition of the melancholy, at times, like I said, you could really do something where you expended a lot of energy and you're expecting that applause, and yet you're not getting it from the melancholy. So this is also a weakness which can definitely affect relationships. But it's good to know, because if you don't know it, then you may not understand where he or she is coming from. Or if you are one, you may not understand how to navigate in your dealings with other people. Then, excuse me, on friends and relationship, let me also point out certain strengths of the melancholy, which is good. I usually would tell people who are in a relationship that it's good for you to, now hear this. This is not a premarital class, but let me share this truth with you now. When you want to get into a relationship, platonic relationship now, sorry, not platonic relationship, but emotional relationship that has to do with, emotions, feelings, and all of that. Maybe you're dating someone or you want to get into courtship and all of that. I usually would tell people, go into that relationship with your brains intact. A lot of people mess it up because they go into relationship with their emotions, with their feelings. But the best way to get into a relationship is with your brains intact. So that is one strength of the melancholy. They make friends with caution. They make friends cautiously because they want to know the friend. They want to study the person. They want to have an idea of the person's intention before they get into a relationship with them. Again, it's not always good, but it's a strength too. Like I said, it's not about whether something is good or bad. It's about how you can utilize it for the benefit of the relationship. So I saw a post the other day where someone said that one guy who has been planning to make what's the word I'm looking for? He's been planning to approach a young lady to propose to her, to even get into a relationship with her in the first place and eventually propose to her to get married. And then someone now, a friend of his now brings the wedding invitation card, his wedding invitation card, and it's the lady who this guy has been planning to propose to, who he was getting married to. So you can imagine, while you were there preparing, being cautious and all of that, some other person just went ahead and executed. And you lost out. So at times, it depends on the individual. So they make friends cautiously, like I said, which is a good thing, but at times it's good to also take that bold step and that bold leap. Melancholies are good listeners when it has to do with relationship. They are good listeners. They know how to listen because they are not talkers. They are deep thinkers. So when you talk, they are able to sit back and listen to you, hear things that you've said and even things that you've not said. So melancholies are very good listeners when it has to do with relationships. A lot of people don't know that listening is a very needed skill in relationships. At times, even without you talking, just being able to pay attention to listen to someone could be a very great, path towards meeting that person's need. Just paying attention, just listening. Melancholies are very good listeners. In weaknesses, melancholies are insecure socially. Don't forget, I'm talking about relationships now. And friends, whether within an organization or within a group of people or within just, melancholies are insecure socially. And you see, because they are reserved and always within themselves, when they find themselves in the midst of people, they tend to it's like a conflict of interests. So a lot of times the melancholy is insecure. So you call them shy at times. You call them melancholy to come and talk outside. A lot of times they are nervous. They don't know how to make presentations. They don't know how to direct their thoughts and make it, to receive clarity and to be vocal about it. So they would even prefer to write it than to talk about it. than to get into the midst of people and begin to voice certain things out. Melancholies are suspicious, very suspicious of people, which is not a good thing. You see, but would I say it's not a good thing? You see, because some people who have been suspicious of other people have actually been able to reveal the tendencies in those people that they were not genuine through suspicion. So really, I wouldn't want to call it negative. I would just say that at times we should know how not to give into the excesses of whatever personality it is that we have. Melancholies are antagonistic and revengeful. I said that earlier. They are also unforgiving. Melancholies are full of contradictions because they are, not they, we, because we are critical in our minds. A lot of times we tend to go against the tide of other people's opinions and mindset. So you may find it's easy to find in a group of people where everybody is going in this direction, melancholies are going in the opposite direction. It's very easy to find that kind of setting. It's safe to say that melancholies at times are full of contradictions. Yeah. Melancholies are also skeptical of compliments. When you pass a compliment, to a melancholy, while every other person is excited, hey, I just got a compliment, I'm excited. A melancholy is like, are you sure there's nothing behind this compliment? Like I said, we are analytical, we are critical, we don't take everything on face value. Yeah. So, there you have it, about the melancholy. I just, had to take my time to make sure that I went through all of these aspects of the melancholy and, explaining the kind of person that this individual is. So that peradventure you are warned, you can begin to understand, oh, this is why I behave this way, or this is why, I react this way, or I respond this way. And if you are not warned, you can begin to get into the shoes of someone you are in a relationship with today, either at work or in a relationship, and it could be your boss. And then it's easy for you to identify why these people behave this way. And by virtue of you understanding why they behave this way, it could be easy to relate with them better. That is the end game and the purpose for all of this that we've been doing from the first month to the second to the third and now the last month within this series. That is the end game. When you understand about these various temperaments, you understand better how to relate with people. Whether you are the one who exhibits this temperament or the person you're in relationship with is the one exhibiting this temperament, you can relate better with the other person. That's the purpose for all of this. That's where you begin to know that, oh, this person is not insane. This person doesn't have a problem. This person is simply who they are by nature. And don't forget also that I keep saying and hammering that no temperament is cast in stone. Meaning that it doesn't matter what temperament you are, you can modify. And I like using the word modify as opposed to the word change. Because you cannot change your temperament, you can only improve upon it in a bid to make yourself a better person. You can't change your temperament, you can what? Only improve upon it through modifying certain things. Like I said, in a bid to make yourself a better person. So there you have it. And this is where we're going to call it quits for today. Again, my name is David King Etienne, your marriage and relationship coach. Feel free to, if you have any questions, leave the questions, and for sure, I'm definitely going to address it at any point in time. Thank you so very much, and God bless you.